the intersection of technology and the rate at which technology's development and psychedelics and this bubbling up of consciousness that people are having on a really large scale. Like it's still niche, but more and more people are opening their mind to rapid consciousness exploration. The combination of those two things actually potentially can give us the power and the initiative and the intelligence and the community to solve some of the greatest problems the world is facing.
Where are we going with psychedelics and what is the stigma? How are we looking with it?
Yeah, so it's my favorite thing to talk about. And I think to kind of give the context to the answer to this, a lot of what we talk about with everything we're doing is me, my team, my co-founder, really feel like there's not a single problem that the world is facing that mushrooms don't have the ability to solve. And psychedelics are included in that holistic ecosystem. And what we mean by that is if you look at the landscape of what is happening with fungi, mushrooms, psilocybin, functional mushrooms, mycelium, there's so much going on in the world right now. Like mycelium, which is the underground root structure of mushrooms, is being used as alternatives to leather and packing materials. Mushrooms can reverse environmental damage out of the air. Psilocybin, which is a psychoactive part of magic mushrooms, which we're both very familiar with, can be monumental for mental health. And it's being used in clinical trials all across the country. And then we have functional mushrooms popping up in beverages and supplements all over the world. And a lot of this too, what's funny about it is functional mushrooms and psychedelics have been used for thousands of years. Our Western world is having this wake up moment to them right now. And so, what's happening in legislation is actually quite funny to a lot of these indigenous tribes that have been using these these medicines for thousands and thousands of years. That's why it's called decriminalize nature, a lot of these acts. Like we're decriminalizing nature, plants and fungi. So anyway, that was just kind of like an overall pulse on what's happening in the mushroom space, and more specifically in psychedelics. It is the most unique time in history for psychedelics. And obviously, there was this war on drugs that happened in the 60s. A lot of people have a misconception that psychedelics kind of originated in the 60s, which is really funny. And I actually think before we talk about the legislation, it's important to look at the history of, where did these come from and when's the first time these were written about in antiquity. There's a book called The Immortality Key, which I know I've talked to you about before, and it's all about Western religion, all Western religion actually starting with psychedelic medicine, a psychedelic ritual. And so if you look in all of these chalices and cups in ancient Greece and Rome, you can find remains of ergo-infused barley in the bottom of these cups, aka psychedelic beer that was a part of these original sacraments in all Western religion. So that's important context for people that are looking at the legislation right now, because, this has been vital for so much of our development. And then what happened was we made psychedelics illegal for various reasons, which most people know about if they're listening to your podcast. But what's happening right now in this space is we're having this third wave resurgence of the psychedelic renaissance. And psilocybin specifically is being decriminalized locally all across the country and legalized in certain jurisdictions. But this is, and the legalization is happening on a state level, which is really cool. But what's really misunderstood in this space is that when, for example, Oregon, the best example, 1.2 million people in 2020 voted to legalize psilocybin for medicinal use in Oregon. And that's amazing because it shows the traction for the space. However, it's only for these larger consciousness altering macro doses, so to speak, at a service center. So to actually be able to experience this, you will have to go in Oregon to start, and other states will inevitably follow, go in and have a guided, facilitated experience with psilocybin. And that's incredible, but a lot of people, that are familiar with the consumer market of psilocybin and the black market are like, oh, well, when these chocolate bars are going to be legalized or these microdoses, and there's actually no current pathway for a dispensary type model for recreational or, what we like to call, wellness supplemental use of psilocybin. And so part of what I've become increasingly passionate about is I thought that a lot of people were working on this to help also legalize microdosing, which has made a monumental impact on my personal health. Hundreds of people that I know and we know in our community, without a doubt, it has been astronomical for not only clinical issues, but also non-clinical issues like flow, creativity, focus, athletic performance, so overall enhancement of human optimization. Really long-winded answer of saying things are happening and there's all these other organizations that are popping up to help support microdosing legalization. We started a nonprofit around this exact topic to try to gather people, but it's really exciting. And I think, where the future is going of psychedelic legalization is ideally, as it continues, we will have decriminalized psilocybin and other psychedelics all across the country and legalized for macrodoses, and then also some sort of model for microdosing psilocybin.
Which has been very helpful, particularly for me. But when it comes to microdosing, what is it? What's the difference between the macrodose for those of us who are in the dark for this?
Yeah, so there's different descriptions of it, but the best one that I've heard is, and there's an incredible company called Third Wave. My friend Paul Austin, who started this nonprofit with us, has a company called the Third Wave, and it is like the best microdosing research site out there. Microdosing is a subperceptual amount of psilocybin or another psychedelic, and the intention behind microdosing is you're not supposed to feel it. So whereas, if you take a hero dose of mushrooms, you should not drive. You are definitely in a hallucinogenic, altered state. Microdosing, it's more about what you don't feel rather than what you do. And it's incredible for people I take it to work. People have reported incredible athletic performance enhancements. And the difference between, microdosing and macrodosing is really just in that, the dosing of it. And, if you feel it and you start to experience hallucinogenic effects, you've taken too much.
You've gone over and you've taken too much,
Mm-hmm.
and you shouldn't be able to feel the microdose.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I spoke to a football player, and he said, you'd be surprised by how many players in the NFL microdose before football games. And he goes, actually, he said the large majority of NFLers microdose.
That's incredible.
Isn't that crazy?
And what they're doing, so, a lot of athletes, and I have a friend that's an incredible athlete in a similar realm. If you combine psilocybin, psychoactive part of magic mushrooms, with like a cordyceps and a lion's mane, functional mushrooms are equally as powerful.
Yeah.
And when you combine those two, what it does, lion's mane in and of itself creates neurogenesis in the brain. And then combine it with psilocybin, which creates this slight neuroplasticity in the brain. You're forming new neural pathways in your brain that have never been used before. And so it's like this slight neuroplasticity that's actually enabling you to think differently and behave differently while you're in your life, which is the vital difference, I think, between these macro doses, which are so powerful, but you are in the cosmos sometimes, so to speak. Like no one can play a football game, unless, if someone has, like, congratulations, seems like a feat.
Yeah.
But, and I think what's also important about what you're noting here is with the amount of people that are utilizing these tools, which they're tools, right? Like they're just like sauna, cold plunge, nutrition, fitness. Like it is a tool that can help you enhance your overall well-being. And people are coming out of the closet, so to speak, the psychedelic closet, to share about and normalize their experience, which is so important because that's how you actually shift culture.
One thing that sticks with me is decriminalizing nature. I was like, when did nature ever become a criminal?
When did nature become a criminal? Yeah.
It's just wild, and for the reasons why it became criminalized in early on in the 60s, right? And it's just, for me, it's like, if there's so much therapeutic value, and we know that the safety, I'll go out and say this right now, mushrooms, when I talk about psychedelic mushrooms, are exponentially more safe than alcohol. And guess what? We drink alcohol all the time. We consume alcohol all the time. But the social effects, the personal effects of alcohol, and also what it does to the body as far as every single time you drink alcohol, it's cumulative, meaning that for each drink you have over a lifetime, it increases your risks of cancer and chronic diseases. To think that is normalized, but something like nature is criminalized, is beyond me, particularly because the safety profile, at least from a medical standpoint, is massive, so much safer than even a lot of prescription drugs that are dispensed like candy right now. So I'm pretty vocal on that, and I can't wait till we can get in the hands of the people who need it the most, right? Especially when it comes to mental health, which has been my passion in it, right? Seeing how it can help people with anxiety, or depression, or really just forgiveness, bringing gratitude. We've had some experiences together, and we're like, oh, okay, now I see the world in another way. I feel more love, and that, like, getting back to your true nature is my biggest passion in everything that I do. Nature and people in their nature. So, and to have a tool like that, to have a powerful tool like that is incredible. So if I went back and I didn't go to school, I would be in the exact same space of what you're doing. I want to talk to you about Athletic Greens. This is a product I take every single day. It's been really helpful at providing energy and focus. So the thing about Athletic Greens is that it doesn't taste like other green powders. Although they have a super healthy, grassy, earthy taste, Athletic Greens actually has a mild, tropical taste. I actually look forward to having it every single morning. So what is Athletic Greens? With 1 scoop of Athletic Greens, you're gonna get 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens to help you start the day right. The thing about this is it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals, no artificial anything, while still tasting good. Now, it supports better sleep quality, recovery, and mental clarity with alertness. AG1 is a small micro habit with big benefits, right? It's one thing you can do every single day that builds up so you're taking better care of yourself. As you know, I only partner with brands that I truly believe in. Athletic Greens is one of them. They're a great company focused on sustainability. For one, they are climate neutral certified company. In 2020, they purchased carbon credits that support projects protecting old growth rainforests. That's how you gotta do it. Additionally, for every purchase, they donate to organizations helping to get nutritious food to kids in need, including No Kid Hungry here in the United States. And in 2020, they donated over 1.2 million meals to children. So if you're looking to get in more vitamins, minerals, nutrients in your day in an easy way, check out Athletic Greens. All you need to do is put 1 scoop in water, or as I do sometimes with almond milk, mix it up and drink it. Now, to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/healthyself. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/healthyself to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Now, we know the last 2 years has been crazy. All of us have experienced it. It's like nothing in our lifetimes. We know that. It's taken an effect on our mental health. So many people are complaining now of more anxiety, more depression, just really not feeling good in your body. Unfortunately, a lot of us has been beaten down over the past 2 years, and it's affecting our everyday life, like sleep, and even in our waking life, our relationships, our work. Now, if you're a working parent, you know you have extra difficulty keeping up with the kids 24/7 while coming home from work. It's not an easy task, especially with the bearing of over the past 2 years. So, if you feel exhausted or burnt out, you're not the only one. A lot of people are going through it. There are thousands of people in similar places. I get DMs all the time about it. So the question is, what is gonna help enhance our mental wellness, right? Recapture that zest for life that we have when we feel good in our bodies. One critical thing I'm advising for everyone is to take more magnesium. You need magnesium for your nervous system. You need it for your immune system. You need it for detoxification. You need it for brain health. Magnesium Breakthrough is the best magnesium product out there, but I want to tell you why magnesium is important. Stress and anxiety deplete your magnesium levels. Low magnesium levels then contribute to more anxiety. It's a vicious cycle that keeps on going and going. When you have a product like Magnesium Breakthrough, you break that cycle. Why? Because you're going to be getting 7 unique forms of organic, full-spectrum magnesium for stress relief and better sleep, all in one bottle. Now, taking Magnesium Breakthrough is going to help you experience more energy. We know magnesium is essential for stronger bones, especially with vitamin D, healthy blood pressure, less irritability, calmer mood, as I mentioned, the nervous system, bringing you back into parasympathetic, relaxing the muscles, reduce muscle cramping, and fewer migraines. And because it supports mental wellness so well, Magnesium Breakthrough can help you finally feel like yourself again. Again, remember, feeling good in your body. So I want you all to go get yourself high quality magnesium, and I want you to start using it every single day. What you're gonna do is go to magbreakthrough.com/DRG, and the code you're gonna use is DRG10. You're gonna get 10% off and free shipping. So when I say what you're doing, I mentioned the ecological system of Into the Multiverse, the multiverse. What is the multiverse, and what does the system look like that you're in?
So, and also, before we pivot off of that, I just want to say, like, it all overlaps. Everything you're doing, talking about mental health and wellness, and actually, something that I like just feel really, I feel like saying this is, the people that got me into the space were the people like, the Tim Ferrisses and Michael Pollans of the world that built audiences in business and wellness. And then they started talking about and funding the psychedelic space, but they built their audiences in these totally separate worlds and built a reputation and validity from these people. And in a very similar way, like, people originally started following your content for totally different reasons, right? But then you've educated, and this audience has grown with you as you've grown as a person. And now when you're coming out and sharing your experiences and your passion for psychedelics, like, that is going to change so many people's perspective because they resonate with your avatar and they've built trust in you. So it's so important. So I just wanted to say that before we pivot off. And as far as like what we're actually doing, there's a few different things. So the umbrella company is called Into the Multiverse. And, we like to describe it as an ecosystem for all things mushrooms. So the first thing that we created was the Multiverse, which is a marketplace for functional mushroom products, so like a Thrive Market or an Erewhon, my favorite store, a curated Erewhon just for mushrooms, where we have products like protein powder, supplements, everything from tinctures to protein bars to jerkies to capsules that have functional mushrooms, so like the chagas, the lion's mane, the turkey tails of the world, as a primary or secondary ingredient, all fruiting body mushrooms, which is something I know you've talked to Danielle about previously.
Very important. You guys make sure that you audit everything that comes on. You make sure nothing gets on that site that isn't like top quality.
Yeah, so we look at all of the products, we look at the brand and look at the transparency behind the company. And so when people are shopping, like, there's so much you could say about this, but the cliff notes are, if you're looking for supplements specifically, fruiting body extracts, high extract ratios ideally, like, a 10-to-1, 20-to-1, fruiting body extracts. If it lists the beta glucans on the supplement label, even better. You don't want to be looking for anything that has mycelium, myceliated biomass, which is often grown on the mycelia, the mycelium, which is, they're not often removed correctly, so you sometimes can get filler in your product. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down, but we vet all the products on the Multiverse, and in parallel with creating this marketplace, which we have, I think we have around 350 products, like unique products right now, and around 60 brands, so it's growing. We also launched our own brand called SuperMush, which you're wearing a SuperMush piece of merch right now.
Listen, for everyone watching on YouTube, this is the swaggiest sweatshirt I ever worn on Heal That Self. It's got a psilocybin guy with his legs, blue mushroom guy running, and then it's got this tie-dyed, but it's like, this is like a retro disco vibe, retro hippie disco vibe. Man, listen, I'm gonna show everyone on YouTube right now. Look at this. This is the swag right here. So go on, yeah, you have your SuperMush. What is it?
So we created SuperMush, and it's inspired by the 60s and 70s, right? Like, even though it's a fully legal functional mushroom brand, it's inspired by the culture and the music and the era of the 60s and 70s, which, where psychedelics really made their splash for the first time in modern, in our culture. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to create something that made mushrooms sexy, so to speak. Like, that's how we describe the brand, but also create products that helped people consume mushrooms without having them taste like shit, and it kind of bridge the gap between people who are mushroom curious and they want to start incorporating mushrooms into their daily life, but it doesn't feel approachable to them. So our first product line is mushroom mouth sprays. And the reason why we created this is a few different reasons. One is mouth sprays are actually the most effective way to get supplements into your system, because when you spray something, it goes directly into your cheek mucosal layer and your lungs through this process called buccal absorption. So it's like a tincture 2.0. So you feel it almost immediately. So we have 3 mouth sprays that we launched, Energy, Immunity, and Chill. And each one has different mushrooms and complementary superfoods and herbs in them. And they're amazing. They taste so good. And they help you incorporate mushrooms into your daily life, which, just to circle back on that, the reason why we say daily, and you know this as well, I know you consume mushrooms almost daily, if not daily. Humans evolved eating mushrooms. And so much of everything we're talking about here is like the history of mushrooms. So it's actually like, how can we go backwards, right, to go forwards? Mm-hmm. And during some of the most vital periods of human development, for thousands and thousands of years of human evolution, humans were consuming mushrooms, both functional mushrooms, and then depending on what theories you believe in, the stoned ape theory, also psilocybin mushrooms, which can explain this massive growth in human brain development over a short period of time that's unexplainable any other way. Like fossilized humans are found with reishi mushrooms, with all sorts of functional mushrooms. And in order to help people in our modern world consume them daily, we created these mouth sprays. We'll continue to create other products. We have a few others in the works right now to help them incorporate them into their life while they taste really good, and they're high doses of these functional mushrooms as well. So you really feel them. We also created a whole merch line with SuperMush. So like we really focused on creating a lifestyle brand. Community is a huge part of everything that we're doing, events. And then the third, and we have 4 pieces, but the third main piece is this media arm of the brand where we do dinner series around the future of psychedelic wellness, bringing together thought leaders in the space to figure out how to move it forward, which we're really passionate about. Same conversations as the ones we're having now of like, what can we do to help bring psychedelics to market responsibly and make them more accessible. So we also have a podcast, Into the Multiverse, which you've been on.
Great one. I was so fun. It was like being able to talk candidly about what mushrooms mean to me in the world was really, that was an excellent podcast, and I had so much fun on it. But I mean, I think that what you're doing and the different arms are really covering so many bases of not only making functional mushrooms cool, right, and applicable and something that we can really get our hands on, that it's easy to introduce us to it, but also the media arm teaching us. The videos that you guys do are like so like well done and artsy and hip, and it's like draws me in, right? I always think, how would I react if I didn't know you? And I'm like, oh, I would think this is the coolest brand, right?
You throw us a like.
Yeah, I throw you guys a like. So, but it's done in a responsible way to bring in really the power of what functional mushrooms, and then hopefully at some point psychedelic mushrooms can do for all of us. And you guys are poised to do some incredible things with that.
Thank you. I mean, it's so much fun, and the reason why it's so, like every day when I wake up, and I think about this a lot. I'm like, oh, I got to talk about mushrooms all day today, and every day I'm reminded of their power, because I wrote this whole thing, which I think I've shared with you, around how if humans behaved more like mushrooms, we would have a better world. And there's so many life lessons that we can learn from fungi and the way that they operate underground. Like 95% of the entire organism, like mycelium, fruiting body, is all underground. So like this is all happening beneath us constantly. Like I think humans think that they own the world. And I was reading something the other day and they're like, who's really in charge here? Like, is it the mushrooms or is it the humans? And they've been such teachers for me. Both functional mushrooms have been massive for my health and my body, but psychedelics and psilocybin specifically has been such a teacher for me. Like I feel like a different person after working with them and experiencing them. And so I'm so grateful to be able to do everything we're doing, and specifically the public policy arm, which we started, the kind of fourth piece of this little ecosystem, is we started this nonprofit called the Microdosing Collective. And the idea with the Microdosing Collective is to help educate the public on the reasons why we need to legalize microdosing psilocybin to start and other psychedelics. And it all fuels each other, right? Like the more we talk about and educate and associate functional mushrooms with psychedelics, the more that people will come to understand that like they're not so scary and help relearn. And it's going to be a really wild next few years. It's moving very, very quickly. Yeah. And the last thing that I'll say on this point is there's so much happening in the world, right? Like even if you look at what's happening in Russia and Ukraine, there's so much like collective trauma that is bubbling to the surface right now. And the reason why, which it is kind of an unpopular opinion, the reason why I like to say like I'm wildly optimistic about the state of the world. It's not because of the state of the world, because there's so much happening that's really terrible across the world. And like we live in 1% of 1% world where I feel very lucky and I haven't had to experience a lot of these things. But the intersection of technology and the rate at which technology's development and psychedelics and this bubbling up of consciousness that people are having on a really large scale. Like it's still niche, but more and more people are opening their mind to rapid consciousness exploration. The combination of those two things actually potentially can give us the power and the initiative and the intelligence and the community to solve some of the greatest problems the world is facing. So I'm really excited to see where it all goes.
Yeah. I know you heard me talk about NuZest, the plant-based protein powder, before. It's a content recommendation on Heal Thyself, and I'm gonna tell you why. Other protein powders are not fully tested nor transparent, but NuZest regularly tests for what? Gluten, dairy, soy, heavy metals, all the ingredients I normally tell you to stay away from because they're going to push inflammation in the body, cause disruptions of the gut, and overall be a detriment to your health. So the company shares their independent testing results. This is such an important quality in a company because when they're sharing that independent testing, you can feel comfortable, especially if you're consuming it every single day. Right? They provide the documents for all their products, their whole line, and it's important to know what's going in your body, especially, again, if you're using the product every single day or you're giving it to your children. Protein powders are great. They provide the building blocks for vitality and support your muscle health. Now, NuZest is easy on the stomach and highly digestible. Has none of the common allergens that affect us when we take protein powders. I remember back in college, I used to take protein powder and every single time I got bloated. But I still had it because it was one of the only protein powders that were available back then that I liked the taste of. But now for me, quality is much more important, which is why a product like NuZest is always gonna be in my top 3 protein powders because of transparency and quality. So for their peas, they're grown in northern France and processed in Belgium. They use a patented water technology, making NuZest one of the highest grade protein powders out there, period. So for the Heal Thyself listeners, you can save 20% on NuZest by going to nuzest.us/heal thyself. Once again, that's nuzest.us/heal thyself. Or you can go to their website and just use the coupon code Heal Thyself for 20% off. One of the most important steps you can take in bolstering your immune system is getting quality sleep. On this show, I talk about the importance of sleep quite often. You know it, it's a building block to overall health. And Ned is a partner that's extremely helpful in achieving a great night's sleep. When it comes to Ned, they have a best-selling sleep blend that is new and improved and offering even a greater night's sleep. This new formulation blends in CBN. This is a powerful cannabinoid that promotes sleep with 750 milligrams of USDA certified organic CBD from the purest single source hemp flower extract and organic wild crafted botanicals traditionally used for sleep. Now the new sleep blend has 24% more sleep inducing botanicals by weight than the previous one. It's gonna be more concentrated. You're gonna get more bang for your buck. As always, all of Ned's full spectrum hemp oil is extracted from USDA certified organic hemp plants grown by Jonathan, an independent farmer, you can look it up, and his family in Paonia, Colorado. They are chock full of premium CBD and a full spectrum of active cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, and trichomes. All of the ingredients and constituents that are really important for a CBD product to be really, really good quality. Ned's full spectrum hemp oil nourishes the body's endocannabinoid system, something that is inherent in all of us, and responds to these constituents positively. They offer functional support for stress, sleep, inflammation, and balance. Ned is fully transparent and shares their third-party lab reports. You can also see who farms their products and read all about their extraction process. It's all there on the website. You can see it for yourself, and they're fully transparent. So, this is Ned's birthday month. If you'd like to give this new and improved sleep blend a try, Heal Thyself listeners, you're gonna get 21% off with the code DRG for the month of March only. It's their best offer of the year for you all. Now, the way to get this deal is you're gonna go to helloned.com/DRG. You're gonna get full access. That's HELLONED.com/DRG. You're gonna get 21% off of Ned's products. As always, thank you, Ned, for sponsoring the show and offering listeners a natural way of getting healthy. I mean, we have great minds already, like changing technology and bettering lives. Sometimes, mostly for the better, sometimes for the worse. You know, I have a weird relationship with technology as it is, but the power of consciousness. And I think, I remember it's our friend Azria, who was on this show, was talking about how, you know, we don't have years to do like this exploration of ourselves and, you know, like of the collective. We're at like kind of like a boiling point right now where people are sort of feel intuitively that something's got to be done with ourselves, our communities, and the world, because the parallel of what's going on is just simply a lot of just what's going on within us, right? We are a collective, and now we're seeing collective consciousness change egoically driven, a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, as you were saying. So for us, it's up to us. And one thing I remember reading this book, Conversations with God, which is my favorite book ever, and it said when you see something and something that you don't agree with, or something that is hurtful for you, or something that you judge, also take responsibility for it, right? So when I see a tragedy or someone declare war on another country, I always see it as we, right? Because there's no way that change can be made if you see yourselves as separate from that occurrence. Even if you have absolutely nothing to do on the surface with that occurrence, saying it as we brings forth that energy of the collective, which brings back to the mycelium network and how what mushrooms can teach us. It is a massive collection of mushroom roots in many ways that just communicate with each other, right? So what we see on the surface is a mushroom on one side of the forest and another one on the other side of the forest, right? And if this one looks at the other one and goes, hey, look at me, I'm blooming, I'm looking beautiful, I'm robust and meaty, and someone's gonna eat me one day. And then this other mushroom's like, oh no, I'm not getting enough sun, I'm getting too much sun, not enough dampness, you know? But the fact of the matter is that it's connected by this beautiful root system. If we can learn anything from mushrooms, is how to be more collected and conscious, and more connected to each other, and understanding that we are not separate, because maybe we don't have roots below us, they're not going into the ground, but maybe there's an invisible net that is connecting us in the same way. That's what the reverence I always give mushrooms, and is like, this network is like our biggest teacher.
It's such a teacher. I love that. And I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. It's called Fantastic Fungi. Beautiful visuals that really give you the essence of mushrooms and show you how we're all connected, right? And you know, Danielle, I saw a clip, so I know she talked about this already on the podcast, but 50% of our DNA is shared with mushrooms. So we're so closely related to mushrooms. And this idea of the mycelium network is what everyone comes out of these large macrodose psilocybin therapy sessions with, right? How many times have people said, we are all connected. I feel so connected to nature, to everyone around me. And what's happened in our world is we have this intense focus on individualism. And psychedelics, you know, or functional mushrooms, and understanding them can help bring us back to this idea of unity and that deep sense of collective responsibility. And I actually had a recent experience that was so beautiful, but what I took away from it, my main takeaway was, you know, it's not just like you live and you die and like make the best of your life and have the most impact. It's like it was like a more of a sense of responsibility, because I felt so connected. I was like, oh shoot, like this is not, it's like all the psychology examples of like, whose responsibility is it? And I think psychedelics help shift more people into that role of responsibility, A, to like cure our own trauma, and, you know, B, to do that so that we can be in service to the world and help solve a lot of these problems. And I love Azria's example. Azria is amazing, and I love what her and Benjamin are creating. And they give this example of psychedelics and spirituality to the answer of, is it a shortcut? Are psychedelics a shortcut to spirituality? And the example she gives, I love it. It's around this idea of like, if you're in a burning forest, so I'm going to steal her answer. If you're in a burning forest, are you taking the long way out, or are you taking the shortcut? And you know, the parallel is our world is quite literally on fire. What's happening with the environment, what's happening with war, and psychedelics and other, you know, consciousness altering compounds can help us expedite this healing that we need to do so that we can actually solve a lot of these problems. And it's just fascinating. And once you have an experience, and they're not for everyone, right? Like this is not, I know so many people that they should not do psychedelics, right? Or they don't need to, because, you know, meditation actually puts you in the same neuroplastic state. If you look at the brain scans, they're very similar. But it's one of the things that can help expedite and give you this feeling of connectedness, which cannot be overstated how valuable it is.
Yeah, I think it's one thing to know conceptually, right? Because for me, it was like I read so many books on consciousness since my freshman year of college, right? I was like, whoa, I was so fascinated with this. And it was like, I'm gonna learn about quantum physics now. And I was like learning everything I can. And I was hearing speakers talk on stage, and I was just in awe of it. And, you know, for 10, 11, maybe 14 years of my life, I knew everything conceptually. You put me on a stage, I can preach all about spirituality and consciousness. I can talk about all of the points that I had no blind spots. But to experientially do that, and I meditate a lot, and it was super beneficial for my mental health. But the first time that I took psilocybin, it's like you telling me I live in a bubble and I don't see the sky, and you telling me all about the sky and the color and the hues and how the light hits on a foggy day, but how the light hits on a sunny day, right? And you're just so poetic with your words, and I have all of my assumptions of what the sky looks like, and then you let me out of this cave, and then I finally see it. You can't even ever come close. So whatever conceptual, logical knowledge I had about consciousness just collapsed into nothingness, and the experiential took over. And experiencing that which I already knew to be true in my own body, that was the revelation of a lifetime. Because for me to say we're all one, but to feel we are all one, for me to say you are love, but to feel that you are love, for me to say fear exists, but it's an illusion, and to feel fear be an illusion, it's mind blowing. So that shortcut or not, I don't care what it is. Experientially, I was able to come out as a better human being, someone who can show up in the world with family, with friends, with work, from a more heart-centric place, and that's what it does. Every time you experience something like this, you can't forget how it feels to remember, right? And when you remember, that's everything, you know? And you can remember now, because I have the experiential. I could walk on the street, in the busiest street in downtown LA with all the horns and people yelling and like, you know, people trying to bring me into the restaurant. Come on, come to this one, and, you know, throwing menus at me. And I could just stop and go, oh yeah, I remember we're all one, it's fine. I remember that feeling in my body. I think that's the power of psychedelics.
That's beautiful. And there's a quote, that's not mine, but that cliche becomes wisdom through experience, and that's what you're describing. Like all of these cognitive things that we know to be true, right? There's just only so far you can get with knowing it up here in your brain, but feeling it in your body, and it is so different. And there's a reason why, you know, like for a recent experience that I had was realizing that to go into feeling, right, like to actually go into emotion and go into, you know, trauma, and there's such a range of trauma, right? Like the big T traumas and little T traumas, and to go in and experience that and actually find in your body where that is being stored and to release it is such an experience that you feel different after. Like your body feels different, right? So it's like this I love what you said about remembering, because the best description I've actually heard of psychedelics, and what gives a lot of people anxiety, I'm jumping around here, but I just had a thought. You know, what gives a lot of people anxiety when they wake up is not being enough, right? Like, or wanting to get these external things that are outside of ourselves. And it's kind of what you were talking about before. It's like the billionaire, that's classic example, doesn't have anyone to invite on the yacht, wish they prioritized community on the way to their path. The realization that there is no destination in our external world, right? Like that the journey is, and Ben and Azria talk about this, about their book, there is nowhere to get. And having those experiences where you can go into your trauma and address it and deal with it, and it can move through your body, whether it's through like some sort of a purge or just the awareness around it, can help you have this observer effect in your life where you really can start to be in this dance and like learn to love your life more.
Yeah.
And it's really beautiful. And we've seen so many people have this experience. Yeah. And, you know, once you can have kind of maybe the shortcut the first time with psychedelics, you can start to piece those things together without needing to have something that's creating neuroplasticity in your brain.
Yeah, that's the remembrance part of like remembering that this isn't a school. There's nothing you're learning. You're just remembering who you are.
And it's actually unlayering.
It's
right?
unlearning,
like
right? So that's the thing I was going to say. It's unlearning that which you identified with that is not you. And we were like, oh no, I need to protect myself, so I'm going to be this person. I'm going to be this person. Oh well, I've got to make sure around these type of people, I'm this person. God, it's fucking exhausting because at some point you're like, I'm going to learn this, and that's the power of what a psychedelic experience can do. Is what happens is very quickly all of the identities and versions of you that you've created through your life are stripped away. It's like it's within a few minutes, and you're naked back to who you are. And it's the most beautiful feeling because then you remember who you are. And who are you? It's love. Everything you feel, even if it's dark in that experience, and you're like, oh, wow, I remember that. You still come back to like, I'm safe, I'm love, I'm love, I'm love. We're all connected. We should change the world. Why are we doing this to the world? Why are we doing this to each other? Why am I doing this to myself? Why am I doing this in my life? To have a wisdom like that, to have a brain connection, to have that communication is, man, I don't think anything in this world comes close. No, I know for a fact, I've never seen any medication or any supplement that comes close. Anything. And practice maybe meditation, breath work, very powerful. But something like psychedelics, like you said, if there's a fire, an inferno that's happening, which is a state of our world, I want some damn shortcuts for everyone.
And often the state of our bodies, too.
The state of our body. We're on fire.
We're quite literally on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And something also that I think is important to note here is, because so many people have conversations around, because psychedelics are now shifting, right? Where the people that are have understanding around them, they're actually, they're being kind of glorified and admired and valued and revered in a lot of ways, which is also amazing. But there's also this like other dark side, right? Yeah. Where there's a lot of spiritual biopassing, a lot of pseudo shamanism, a lot of I guess, the best way I've even come to describe it in my own personal life, and I've had to like be psychoanalyzing myself in a lot of ways as well, like are we, it's all love mentality is so beautiful and wonderful, but if it oversteps personal boundaries that are actually the more loving thing, that's a super dangerous kind of mix to get into. And there's a lot of, I guess I want to call it like prioritization of making sure that like your value system is in lock and you're not being swayed by this like it's all love mentality that can be kind of construed of like, oh, this is coming from psychedelics and this is like this message download that I've had. Because you see a lot of people enable and like stay in toxic situations, whether it's relationships or work environments, because they're kind of being manipulated by the allure of this like it's all love mentality from psychedelics as well.
We can all heal. But what I found is that there is in an experience a lot of mirroring. It showed that there's a mirror that comes right to you and it shows you a lot about you. So it's very easy. It's for sure like the overwhelming, for me in my experiences, the overwhelming theme is we're all connected, it's all love. We know that. That's there from the beginning. The work is in the mirror that it's showing me, and it's like, if it's all love and we're all connected, why do you do this to yourself? Why do you say this to yourself? Why don't you have a boundary around this? So it's a very sobering lesson and a very vulnerable lesson that's showing me the very things that I'm ignoring. So what I find is that, that's a tool right there for you to take unwavering responsibility on yourself and accountability on yourself and go, wow, I just saw some stuff that I didn't want to see about myself, and it's completely right. I do this. I do show up like this, and now's the time. So there's power in the personal responsibility part too. But yeah, it's easy to spiritually bypass and be like, I just took psychedelics and it's all love, and I'm in an abusive relationship. We spiritually bypass
ourselves often. Yeah. Like I had a friend who recently talked to me about, he's like, I didn't realize through meditation and psychedelics, I was accidentally spiritually bypassing myself for like allowing toxic relationships to stay in my life. So
sure.
And that's why to work with someone who is an expert and can help you integrate things, and also just really, if you're looking for people to work with or take advice from, just make sure they feel super embodied to you around, are they practicing what they preach? And do they feel humble? Like, or are they doing, psychedelics once and then telling everyone they're a shaman or whatever it is?
A lot of that, especially here in LA.
There's so much of it. And, anyway, there's so much to it, but it's such an exciting time.
Yeah.
And the more experiences I hear about, and just to witness transformation amongst ourselves and the people in our community, and even I just had an experience with 30 strangers in more of like a ceremonial setting and to witness like the weekend transformation in these people is so profound. So
the traumas that are released.
Yeah.
People have so much shit.
Right, and it all makes sense. But I think we're uniquely qualified as this generation to actually process all of these things. Like it's the reason why we have conversation with our parents. I had a conversation with my mom, and she was like, "Oh, I don't have any trauma," and I was like, in my mind, I was like, "Well, you had a really intense childhood," but I think we're able to actually like put language around a lot of these things and process them, which also something that is important to note. And I have to like check myself on this a lot is the over introspection is super dangerous, and like the disease of seriousness, which our friend Blue has talked about. Like she words it like, the over seriousness in our world is one of the greatest diseases or something along those lines. So to be able to appropriately introspect yourself where you're not taking it too far and creating, we're all actually in a lot of ways addicted to our trauma as well. And it's the reason why you see people that have been paralyzed for years of their life or the majority of their life. Whenever they experience getting better, or they're not attached to that illness anymore, they actually decompose and self-destruct because we're addicted to the things, like the stories about ourselves. So it's all this dance of like appropriate introspection, and then like the work never ends. Exactly what you're saying,
It'll never end, but it's very easy to be so introspective that you are attracting more reasons to be introspective.
Absolutely.
And it's just the energy that you're doing. And it's like, what's exhausting to me? Someone who's always doing the work too.
Right.
That's exhausting. Like, okay, do the work, but then like, let's like laugh and be goofy together too.
Right.
And be like, oh, this is kind of a play and display of objects, and this is the play, and we're just characters, and we're able to enjoy and flow through it too. So I want, before we close out, if you're comfortable, I would love to share, for you to share the story about your mom and what the experience you had with your mom. Was it your mom and dad, or just your mom?
Mom, dad, sister.
Mom, dad,
yeah.
were your family,
yeah.
and psychedelics.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to share, and the reason is because it paints a really good picture and a good case study of like of just the vitalness, and you cannot overlook how much importance education and research and taking the time to really understand what is happening before you have an experience can play, and the process of changing someone's mind even just through education. And the example that I want to give along these lines, which I thought about recently, is this is kind of a stretch, but it comes back to the point. So human sexuality, right? Like is really misunderstood. And a lot of people don't understand that, Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, a lot of the ancient philosophers that we derive so much of modern conservative democracy from actually started with, Plato and Aristotle, who were writing 80%, depending on which studies you look at, 80% of their writings were written about their sexual relationships with little boys, because that's how sexuality was in antiquity. Before the establishment of religion, people were, there was no heterosexuality, homosexuality. And the lack of connecting the dots on those two things, I think, is what has led to a lot of judgment and stereotypes and labels on modern sexuality that has forced people into bubbles and created so much trauma for people that are not able to express themselves freely through sexuality. And I think if more people were to understand the origin of sexuality and how it came up in antiquity and how humans used to behave and how they're, operating along the same belief systems through people that used to, write 80% of their work about their sexual relationships with same sex, it would be a totally different understanding. And there's this parallel, I think, to psychedelics. And if more people were to understand the origin, to read the Immortality Key and understand that most modern Western religions, including Christianity, arguably started with psychedelic sacrament, it would be a totally different story, right? Or if, Michael Pollan wrote this book, How to Change Your Mind, where he details and elevates psychedelics because of his own personal experience. And so my mom, it's a long-winded context of explaining my mom, when I was first starting to talk about and get into this space, there was like, so that classic judgment, right? Of, she thinks weed was the devil, had a bad experience in college. And the process of her unlearning and then relearning and changing her mind through education alone prepared her over a 2-year period to have a psychedelic experience. And it was so beautiful because I witnessed the unlearning from just the reading and the podcasts and the books and all of these things, which we went on this journey together, and it was so beautiful. And then her actually having an experience where, you know, it was like the classic, most beautiful psychedelic psilocybin experience ever. She saw Jesus, he gave her a hug. She felt more love and connection she ever has in her life. And I have actually seen so much change in her, and she self-reports this. And every time I talk to her on the phone, almost, she's like, I can't believe I would have died never having that experience. That didn't happen overnight. So don't just go give your mom mushrooms at all. It's like focus on really taking the time and the energy to explain things in a really elevated way that can then prepare people to have one of these experiences if they decide that that's a good path for themselves. And in a similar way, you know, with my dad or my family, and it's just been such a beautiful thing because it's brought us all closer together and given us like a lens of understanding on each other. And you know, every time you do any of these medicines, you also just you process so much stuff with your family.
Yeah.
So she's a really beautiful example of education and what can happen if you focus on that.
Shout out to Mama Schaper, man. Bravery in every single way, man. It's amazing.
And you met her. Linda loves you.
And I met her, and Linda loves me. Yeah. So, but how many families can really benefit together from doing it is just. You feel more connected, you understand each other better. I mean, it's the thing that you see when you do it in groups, especially when you care about people and you love them. So I love that you did that. All right, before we head out, how can we find you? Where do we find you? All the information if people want to access Alli Schaper. So we're doing 4 different things right now. So I'm going to list the 4 different ways you can access us based on what you're most interested in. We have our functional mushroom marketplace is at Multiverse on Instagram. We'll link it. And then we have our functional mushroom brand, SuperMush, where we have merch and mouth sprays and a lot of really fun content. We have some TikToks of the infamous Dr. G. Oh, I had so much fun.
A lot of good content there. So if you go to SuperMush on Instagram, you can find all of our stuff and supermush.com as well. And then we have our media arm called Into The Multiverse, where we have our podcast, our dinner series, a lot of like recap videos, psychedelic news legalization as well, or psychedelic legalization news. So Into The Multiverse on Instagram. And then if you go to microdosingcollective.org, that's our nonprofit. So if you're interested in microdosing, if you are looking to get involved in any sort of public policy initiatives, check out microdosingcollective.org. We have a manifesto for people to sign. And so that's the super early stages, but we'll have a lot more stuff coming with that. And then my personal Instagram is Alli Schaper, and I'm really active on Instagram. I'm always around, so if anyone wants to reach out, talk to me about mushrooms, talk to me about psychedelics, would love to chat. And she will chat with you, and she'll be open, and she'll give you all the heart-centric answers you'll ever hear. And if you don't find her in any of those, you find her on my stories of us dancing at some sort of weird party that we go to, or frolicking in the woods. Or getting my phone out of the sewer. Or getting your phone out of the sewer, which I helped you out with the other day. So it's true friendship. Thank you, Alli. It's been 160 plus shows, and you're finally on. What a blessing. I'm so happy, and thank you so much. I love you. Thank you so much for having me on. And there you have it, my friend Alli Schaper, always doing what she does, a ball of light, so exciting, so excited to talk about her work. Thank you for joining the show. Hey, if you haven't rated the show on iTunes or wherever you're listening, or subscribed on YouTube or wherever you're listening, or reviewed the show, please take 2 minutes of your time. It would really, really help the show. Thank you for supporting as always. We are growing, as always, every year, bringing you all the love and education from the deepest part of my heart. Thank you for supporting the show. I love you all. I'm gonna see you next week. Okay.